Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? NFL Stadium swindling as we now have two new deals. The Jags and the Panthers getting a deal done with their respective cities, locking in 30-year deals. We are going to find ourselves in the next 2 years here where almost a quarter of the league, 8 out of 32 stadiums, are either going to be being built or rebuilt. So what does that mean for the future of the league? We're going to dive into that. Also, we're at baseball's break. Well, theoretically we are. The All-Star break's still a couple weeks away, right? But teams in the next 48 hours here will play their 80th and 81st game. What do we make of the Major League Baseball season at this point? A couple surprises in here, good or bad. And, of course, we're going to start with Tua's time. Tua Tagovailoa said he wants market value. Why shouldn't he? Why shouldn't he want market value? And what that means for the next few quarterbacks. And the NFL, of course, owners kicking around an idea for a salary cap for just quarterbacks, how that would look, and the mess that teams are going to find themselves in here in the next 2 to 3 years. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, the auditory route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, of course, harponsports.com. Tua's time. Entering the final year of his rookie deal. Of course, they can franchise him if they want to next year. They can play that Kirk Cousins franchising game if they want. But financially, you've got to find a cookie and take a bite. And if you're his guy or if he's your guy, you need to invest long-term in this dude. If he's not, you need to bail. And I understand the apprehension from the Dolphins because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Finally, last year, he stayed healthy. Finally, stayed healthy. Team just lost 7 starters on defense. You're not beating Kansas City in the postseason. Minus 6-7 starters on defense. Them the breaks. P is partnered up with Tyreek Hill to make one of the most deadly 1-2 combos in the league, if not the best 1-2 combo in the league. Tyreek's going to have a $50-60 million cap hit coming up here. They've got themselves a mess with him as he hits 30 and moves forward here. How many years does Tyreek have left? But if you don't have the quarterback, nothing else matters. It really doesn't. So I was going through and looking at the numbers. Tua, financially, where the Dolphins sit, there's ways to put the money on the back end, especially the way the salary cap continues to move up. They can give him a Trevor Lawrence deal. You bet. They can give Tua a Trevor Lawrence deal. 5 years, $275. Let's go. Guarantee about 140 of it. Here we go. You can do that. Now, if he weren't injured as often as he is, you could go the Patrick Mahomes route, which is one of those things that looks bad for a player, but as long as you continue to remain healthy and continue to play at a high level, the Chiefs just keep doing a great job of going and finding money in the future, converting it into money now, and keeping Patrick Mahomes up there on par with the average salary. 10 years, $450 million does what for him? $45 million a year, right? That puts him like 9th amongst NFL quarterbacks. But when you can constantly convert that money, basically what you're doing is borrowing on your future, taking money from the future. But as long as you can continue to do that, so what? The Bucs did that with Tom Brady. Problem is, when you get to the end of the rainbow, there's a year where you get burned. You're paying a guy $30-40 million for doing nothing. And that will eventually happen with the Chiefs down the road, but that's going to happen with all these guys down the road. Sacrifice tomorrow for today. So, I mean, there's where you are with Tua. What do you want to do? And if you redo Tua's deal, then immediately you need to take Tyreek's deal, kind of resituate that thing. If I'm doing a 5-year, $275 deal with Tua, I'm looking at Tyreek going, okay, we want to redo yours for 5 years too. That way you have those two combos, those two guys together for the next half decade. And then you need to draft well. You need to make your decisions where you're worthy or where it's willing to pay your money and where it's not. Where is it not willing to pay tons of money? Linebacker. Where is it willing not to pay tons of money? Safety. Well, you would like one lockdown corner. Where is it not willing to spend tons and tons of money? You can do it with one offensive lineman, not multiple offensive linemen. The Dolphins really don't have that up front. If a team, I keep mentioning the Chiefs, because the Chiefs got 3 guys on the offensive line that are making $20 million a year. You got to figure out how to fix that going forward. You're going to find yourself in a gigantic mess. That's when you count Kelsey. But I sit here and say to the Dolphins, your options. What are your options at the end of the day? Well, you can franchise him for one more year. So now you got 2 years to kind of figure it out. And that's probably the responsible thing to do. The smart thing to do. The financial thing to do is bet the future for the present and give him one of those 5-year, 275 deals. And if it doesn't work out, you find yourself in a situation where you have to draft a quarterback, put him behind him, and you got a Kirk Cousins situation on your hands next year. Okay, what are your other options? You can trade him. I doubt the one trade that would make the most sense would be an even up swap with Dallas. If Dallas has no intention in signing Dak long term, but would even Jerry have the cojones to do that? Would Jerry be willing to give a young, 25-year-old, 26-year-old Tua a 5-year, 275 deal? Let Dak walk? Or trade Dak to Denver or to Miami? Then would Miami be willing to pay long term when it comes to that? I don't know how much of an age is an issue for Dak, but Dak's sitting there, coming off 4,160. Dak's going to want 5,300, or at least knock on the door of it. So if you're those are your options. If you're Miami, the smart thing to do is pick up the franchise tag. The smart thing to do is sign him or let him play this year out. Try to work a long-term deal out in the 270 range. If you get about 6 or 7 games in, it's like there's no gigantic rush to do this right now. If you get about 6, 7 games into the season and he's healthy and he's playing well, then you're like, okay, that's 24, 25 straight games that he's played. Maybe he's shaking these concussions and okay. Everybody else makes sense. Trevor Lawrence got hurt last year, but that makes sense from the Jaguar standpoint because it's not a head injury. The other ones, Joe Burrow got hurt rookie year, tore an ACL, right? Comes back, has a couple great years. Last year gets hurt. Late in the year. Okay. Now what? Well, they already signed him before the second injury, right? So that makes sense. Jared Goff, from Detroit's standpoint, they're knocking on the door of the Super Bowl. That makes sense. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, those all make sense in their own surroundings. But none of those guys are dealing with head injuries. Multiple concussions. So, interesting to see where this goes. The question is, this lays itself out down the road, is this. 5,275 for Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. $55 million a year, right? So, the question is, when it goes to 56, 57, 58, is the next one 5,280? If that's the case, then who would be 5,280? Well, it'd be Tua. It would be Dak. It'd be Jordan Love. Depending on, if he has a good year in Green Bay this year, then Jordan Love's going to be looking at something like that. All of a sudden, if you are the Buccaneers, you look around and go, man, Baker Mayfield for $35 million a year, maybe not that bad of a deal. Now, he's not what Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert are in terms of talent and skill set and ability to throw the ball around, but he's Jared Goff, isn't he? Joe Burrow is. Baker Mayfield is. Baker, kind of a sweet deal for the Bucs for 3 years. But here's the thing. He goes out and he balls out and takes you deep into the Super Bowl and goes deep, maybe goes to the Super Bowl. Then all of a sudden he's going to look at that and go, okay, where's my 5,275? And you're going to be right there. But that's the going rate. So I look down the road and they're talking about $60 million guy. Dak's going to want to be a $60 million guy. Well, 5 years, $300 million. You can get away with that. 26, 27. When you're 32, 33, going to be a little bit tougher. A little bit tougher. So the Cowboys want to tear this up and do Dak right now at 5,280. You probably get away with it. Somebody will offer him that in free agency, by the way. If you say, well, they're not, I wouldn't pay him that. I would. No way. No way. Somebody's going to offer somebody that eventually. You don't think if Aaron Rodgers retires at the end of the year, the Jets won't give Dak Prescott 5,280? Come on. We're talking about the NFL's first $300 million man. Dak going to be kind of tough. A year from now, a lot of these quarterbacks are locked up. The guys that have the chance to be the first $300 million men are who? Well, put Dak up there. If the Cowboys want to go 6 years, the other guys that you could do $300 million, Jordan Love, the guy that's going to get a $300 million deal if he stays healthy is CJ Stroud. You'd think that one of these teams would come along like the Packers and go, all right, we're not going to do 5,275. We're not going to do that. Let's instead do 6. Let's do 7,380. Let's lock him up to long term. And then we put money in the back end, and we can afford more money up here up front. Again, the Chiefs Mahomes deal. But you have to have a quarterback that's willing to play ball with that. Will they? I don't know. But the smart thing to do is give your quarterback, really, if they stay healthy and have proven themselves, and you think this is the guy. It was easy for KC because Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl in MVPs and had proven, okay, he's the guy. He's legit. Be interesting to see what they do here. It really, really will be. But what Tua? If you franchise him, you trade him, or you give him the deal. But then you're playing that Kirk Cousins, Washington, do-si-do for a couple years here. And he can always sit out. There's another curveball. Speaking of money in NFL stadiums, wow. This week, the Panthers, the Jags make theirs official. And I was going through and looking at the finances of this. It's always fascinating to me when, and then by the way, the city of Jacksonville got a pretty sweet deal. And you still have people complain, which shows you people are going to complain no matter what. People complain about ticket prices. Just in the College World Series with Tennessee and Texas A&M, you had people complaining about college tickets are $300 a game. I can't afford to go to this. So what do you want them to do? Charge 10 so you get to go? It's not right. Well, ticket prices are sheer market value. It is. Family can't afford to do a game. You're right, they can't. I can't afford that. I can't afford $300 a game. For bait? No way. There have been a few sporting events I look at and go, okay, that was worth the price. The one that I went to that was worth the price of admission, I think it was $40, was when Jason Varitek and Alex Rodriguez got in a fight. 20 years ago now. Oh, God. But, yeah, that was worth it. But that's because an event took place. It's tough to get in there, right? You're buying memories is what you're doing. So, yeah, I understand people are upset and costs, and fans are upset about money no matter what. We shouldn't have to pay. Owners should have to pay for their own stadiums. Again, I always harken back to this. 3 cities and the residents stood up against ownership and said, you spend your own money. Those cities were St. Louis, San Diego, and Oakland. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have to give a little bit. You just are. I went through and crunched the numbers on this, city-wise, money-wise. These are proposals that are on the table. Obviously, Buffalo's got theirs done. Nashville's got theirs done. That's 2 stadiums that are in the process of being built. 2 stadiums that are going to start to go under major renovations. Charlotte, Jacksonville. And the Panthers, that's the worst deal. The city picking up 77% of the cost. Ownership, Dave Tepper picking up 23%. Boy, Dave Tepper took that baton right from Daniel Snyder, didn't he? It was a nice little pass. Like the 4x4, 4x2. Nice little pass. 4x4. Here you go. Baton of that guy in the NFL. So he hoses that city. That's 23%. So the city's got to kick in, $500 million? Dave Tepper, or the city's got to kick in $650 million. Dave Tepper, ownership group, Carolina, 150. 23%. City's picking up 77% of the tab. Jacksonville gets a pretty sweet deal when it's all said and done. $1.4 billion overall, $6.25 million or $625 million coming from Shad Khan, and then extra money from the city for taxes and no new taxes, but they extend the tax. So in other words, when it's all said and done, Shad Khan kicks in 45%, the city kicks in 55%. And Shad Khan picks up any overages, which there will be. There's going to be at least $100 million in overages. There just will be. There always are, if not more. So pretty sweet deal for Jacksonville compared to any other city and everything anybody else got. I know it's been a decade now, but I think Arthur Blank in Atlanta, I think that was 70-30. The city of Atlanta did 30 and he did 70. You don't get that. Jerry, of course, did everything in Dallas, but 15, 20 years ago now. The other one that's on the table, the Hunt family, Kansas City. $800 million, $300 with the family kicking in. That is 38%. So you have Shad Khan 45%, his skin in the game, City 55. Clark Hunt 38%, City 62. And Dave Tepper in Carolina 23%, City 77. So that gives you a little shakedown. Now, the money fluctuates here, right? Shad Khan's picking up more, but it's more money. City's paying more. So now what? Well, the city's paying much as most of these other entire deals. Well, those three are currently, well, it depends on depending on what's going to happen with the hunts in Kansas City and whether or not the Chiefs go across the border and go to Kansas and money. And now you're talking $1 billion, $1.5 billion, and that's what Clark Hunt has to think here. Like, okay, I'm kicking in $300 million for this deal. If we get up, the new stadium's going to be $2 billion. Then give tax breaks and all those things. The sheer construction cost in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be $2 billion. So now, if I kick in 25%, that's $500 million. If I get to $600-700 million, is it worth double the money that I'm going to kick in to renovate Arrowhead to get a new stadium? Maybe make some fan base angry. At the end of the day, they always forgive you. They do. So as long as you're winning. So what do? And you do what's the best deal for you. But this whole thing, and quite frankly, Kansas City, and then you let the voters vote it. No, got to work out a deal. But this is one of those things you just can't open it up to the voters. They're not going to vote for it. Just not. Everybody's pissed off about everything now. And the chance for people to stick it to billionaires, they're going to do it every single time. With inflation, recession, they're going to stick it to billionaires every single time. There's no long-term vision here. Like you see, and this happened with the Jaguars, you see people say, this $1.4 billion would be better to go to for streets and police officers and the community. Yeah, Shad Khan's not going to give you $800 million for you to rebuild your city. The reason you're getting, well, that $625 million should go to the people then. Oh, okay, fine. The team's going to leave. Well, they should build their own team. This is one of those things that's not up for debate. You can discuss how the money's dispersed in shares, and if you want to go 55-40, 60-40, fine, you can do all those things. But sticking it to NFL owners means the team's going to leave. So, again, here's what you have coming up here. In 3 years, 2 years, you're going to have a quarter of the league under construction. Kansas City, one way or another. If the Chiefs get theirs done, of course, Charlotte, of course, Jacksonville, just those three. Now, what do you have over on this front? You have the Bills getting a new stadium, 4. Titans getting a new stadium, 5. We just keep growing and growing and growing, don't we? Renovations. Minneapolis is talking about kicking in $200 million to renovate that. That thing's not even 10 years old. But they're going to renovate that thing. Was it $300 million, $250 million to renovate that thing? Now you're up to 6. Washington wants a new stadium really, really bad. Now, do they get that signed, sealed, and delivered? They're not going to break ground on that in the next year. But within 3 years, you bet. New ownership, new deal, Washington, D.C., depending on who the president, I don't know how much the president really matters at the end of the day. They put it in Maryland. They're going to get a new deal done. Of course they are. The fact that Jacksonville's getting a new stadium and Charlotte's getting a new stadium, you think Washington, they're going to look around and go, huh? By the way, that team's not moving. I know we'll dangle carrots here. That team's not moving. So there's stadium number 7. Yeah. So there's 7 of 32. Well, who else out there, are we talking new stadium deals, renovations, rebuilding? Just wait. There's always another. There's always another. There's always a rebuild, a remodel, a refit, a redo. The other one that's going to start to bubble to the surface. 6 years ago, Miami, complete overhaul. Been longer than that now, is it 7, 8? Jacksonville, complete overhaul. Do you think Tampa's going to sit around? Within 3 years, you're going to have 25% of the league either building a new stadium or undergoing a major renovation. So this whole thing of we're going to wait, we're not going to, you don't have a choice. You can hard term negotiate, but you don't have a choice. You can sit there and hope an ownership group is generous and will pick up 40% of the tab. Again, the Hunt family, 38%. Teppers and Carolina, 23%. Shad Khan, 45%. You get an ownership group to kicking around 40%. Yeah, you're doing something. So financially, that's where we sit on those fronts. Want to wrap with this. Baseball, we're at the break. Well, theoretically, we're at the break. Halfway through. The All-Star game's still a couple weeks away. 3 weeks away? All-Star game? But baseball, we sit here today and we are 50 games in. 50 games in. Well, 45 teams have 50 wins, but we're 80 games in. So what do we know is we are really at the de facto halfway point. of the season. Teams will have played their 79th, 80th, 81st game in the next 72 hours. Some have already played more than 80. Everybody will have at least 81 games under their belt by Sunday. So, now what? Well, now this. You have 5 teams on pace for 100 wins. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? You have 5 teams at over 50 wins. The 5 teams are on pace for 100 wins are who? Phillies, Dodgers, Orioles, Yankees, Guardians. 5 teams on pace for 100 wins. What does that mean? It hasn't meant anything in the postseason the last few years. Dodgers ripping off 100 wins every year. So, you take a step back and you look at baseball at this point. Mookie Betts being injured. There have been some big injuries. Justin Verlander, couple starts back on the DL. Clayton Kershaw hasn't come back yet. Max Scherzer just came back. You have 3 Hall of Famers that have started less than 10 games. One hasn't even gotten back yet. So you have those 3 Hall of Famers there. Mike Trout out. There's probably more than that, but those 4 are Hall of Famers today. Baseball Hall of Famers. Mike Trout, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw. 4 guys. Trout's been out for a month. Kershaw's been out all year. Scherzer just been out all year till the last week. And now Verlander's back on the DL. So what I'm saying is we're at the All-Star break and 4 of your Hall of Famers have basically been nowhere to be found. So we talk about the true changing of the guard. We're kind of there. Aaron Judge, 30 home runs again, on pace to hit 60. Here we go again. And baseball finds itself in an interesting situation. Shohei Ohtani doing what he's doing. Dude's going to hit almost 50 home runs, drive in over 100 runs. He's leading baseball in batting average. I mean, good God. So you've got big names up there. The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cardinals are back in the hunt. Think about this. In the American League, as we hit the halfway point, here's your playoffs as of today. The Yankees in, Guardians in. So you say, okay, Yankees, Guardians. What else do we have? Mariners in, which is a little weird. But who's breathing down their neck? The Astros. The Astros were a team that was what? Oh my God. They were 12 games out. They were in terrible shape. They're back to 500. They're back on the door of 500 now, halfway through. So all the injuries, the mess, the Astros had a terrible April. They win 7 games in the month of April. They were terrible. Have righted the ship. And if they finish 4 games above 500 in July, August, and September each month, come on, they're going to make a wild card team. They'll be a wild card team. Of course they will be. If they can go 15-10 every month, of course they're going to make the postseason. What's that? 89, 73, right around in that front. If they play like they did in May and June, in July, August, September, the Astros are going to make it. But anyway, Yankees, Guardians, Mariners, what do you have? They're not in yet, by the way. The Astros aren't in yet. I'm just giving you an example of a team that's red hot. Right now, the Twins and the Orioles are wildcard teams, and the Red Sox and Royals are tied. We're talking about the Red Sox picked to finish last in that division. Royals weren't picked to finish last in their division, but they're right there at the bottom, and young talent finally figuring things out. Now, can the Red Sox and Royals hold this out? I don't know. The Royals have lost 7 of their last 10, so I don't know how that sustainability now at this point. Red Sox have won 7 of their last 10. So the thing is, when you have all these teams that are up here, the Cubs have played terrible. I don't know who's going to be major sellers here at the end of the month. There's always somebody. Talk about Bichette and Vlad Jr. in Toronto. Are they going to be sellers? Don't know. But a Yanks, Guardians, Mariners, O's, Twins, Sox, Astros in there. It's pretty good. Pretty nice little American League postseason. The National League, the National League's a dream. You kidding me? In the National League? Here's what you have in the National League. You have the Phillies and the Dodgers, of course, on pace to just wreck all sorts of havoc. You got Milwaukee, and then you have yourself a situation with the Braves, the Cards, and the Padres. So, a postseason that you have the Dodgers, you have the Phillies, you can get the Braves, you get the Cardinals. No, look, there's teams out there, I know, tradition rich, and even the Mets are 500 at this point. Baseball's going to look around and go, man, half of our teams are in contention. We're in pretty good shape right now. We're in pretty good shape. And the Mets were one of those that we thought were going to be sellers. Pete Alonso going to be, they're at 500. They're right in the wild card race. What are they, 2 games out of the wild card right now? Yeah. So I sit here and I wanted to see who are going to be the sellers. If there's any, there's always a prize crown jewel out there. There always is somebody. But we thought the Red Sox would be sellers. Kenley Jansen, they'd have some guys on the market. Tyler O'Neill. We thought, I mentioned the the Mets with Pete Alonso. We thought that Toronto would be major sellers. The Cubs keep falling apart. They may end up being sellers, but okay. Interesting season for Major League Baseball, but bad season. They've had some injuries. Oh, by the way, Paul Skeens 4-0 with the Pirates. This guy keeps up this pace. What was he going to end up? Probably about, you try to extrapolate this out and no decisions. You're going to win double-digit games as a rookie. 11, 12. If you go 12-2 as a rookie, he's must watch. If he's on, he's like Strasburg. Stop. Let's watch him. So you have a nice young core coming up through. So baseball's in pretty good shape at the halfway point. Your big dogs are there. 5 teams can win 100 games. Your big names are up there. And of course, there's always names that don't make it. Yankees, playoff team. Red Sox right now, playoff team as of right now. Those two just having the chance to go up at each other, sure. Then you look around the rest of the league. What do you have? You have the Cardinals back in contention. Many times St. Louis is back in contention. The Phillies, what the Phillies have done, Bryce Harper. Dodgers. No embarrassing struggles in baseball this year. It hasn't been completely smooth, but baseball's in pretty good shape halfway through the year. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe. At Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Auditory route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and our Harp on Sports, the Bar. Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.